Good evening. I hope everyone can hear us okay. I'm Jason with Phase Shift Games, and I'm here with...
Scott Smith, designer, Dungeon Drop, and
Welcome.
Drop Drive now.
And Drop Drive. Yeah, so this is really the first public sighting, I guess, of us talking about... No, that's not true. We did the whole Drop Drive play session at UK Games Expo last year, but we weren't really like formally pushing it or promoting it, and now we're really kicking that off. How's that feel, Scott?
It feels great, yeah. It's been a long time kind of coming. This is a project that's been going on a little bit in the background for an awful long time now, so it's just really great to be actually starting to talk about it. We did the first interview the other day, and yeah, it's great.
We'll mention that in a little bit as well, so people can know what we're talking about. If folks on, we got Facebook streaming going on, YouTube, Twitch. If I could just get, Scott is a little low. Okay, so that's confirmation that you can hear us. That's good. That's what I was asking for. And Scott, I don't know if your mic is able to get a little closer or whatever, or just project theater school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have no way to mix the audio. That may or may not be true. I'll take a look at that as Scott's talking in a little bit. But first, let's introduce what's going on here, folks. So we're streaming live to all these different platforms. First of all, I'm just really giddy, about the technology that we got all this working, and we can have this multi-stream going on. We got people chatting in different channels, and we've got it all aggregated. It's just really cool to see it all working without a whole lot of technical issues. So that's exciting. But what we're wanting to do, obviously we've been working on this game Drop Drive for some time. And when I say some time, obviously I mentioned UK Games Expo last year, so it's been like a year plus in development at this point. Hey, he's got a box. Oh, it's upside. Oh yeah, because you got the lid upside down. But what we wanted to do, this is a new series that we're gonna, weekly. Maybe we'll skip a week here or there. More bi-weekly. We'll see. But this is gonna be a live stream series where we pick apart the game of Drop Drive, and the reason should become apparent soon enough. This game has a lot going on for it. There's just a lot of different aspects of it. It's very different from Dungeon Drop, as you're gonna start to see. So we wanted to have a series that each week we can kind of pick a different aspect of the game and really drill into it. So tonight is going to be more overview overall. We'll show you some of the early prototype artwork. Actually, it's not even early prototype artwork anymore. It's kind of almost ready prototype artwork. But we'll show you some glimpses into that. We'll give you a high-level framework and talk about the game in general and kind of the origins of it. Obviously, hearing from Scott, what sparked this whole idea. So that's what this is all about. And you're going to get to hear the designer, Scott, and the publisher's perspective. My own and Darren, as most of you know, is still dealing with his house struggles, so he's with us in spirit. I think he's with us watching along on Facebook. When he can, certainly he'll join these live streams as well. We'd love to have the whole team here. But you're going to get the designer and the publisher perspective in these. And hopefully these will be exciting. And we welcome any questions and feedback at all. You don't like the artwork? Tell us. If you have a thought about a cool thing to throw in the game, like have you thought about pulling in this, weird, I don't know, astro goo? Someone already said on Facebook they want the, what did they call them? Space gelatinous cubes? Let us know those things.
I think, we've anybody who followed the Dungeon Drop campaign certainly knows that one of the things we have the most fun with these systems is really kind of designing it with the community. We are well out of the Kickstarter now. It's still quite a ways away. So we're still in final design phase and totally open to just hearing people's ideas or fielding questions. It's going to be a work in progress by some definition, even a little bit into the Kickstarter, just because we like to really leave that little space open intentionally to collaborate with the community.
Absolutely. Amen. All right, but before we dive in and really start talking about some of those concepts, drinks of choice. My drink of choice tonight. This is a special occasion. I'm really excited about this kickoff. So tonight is a Lafroig night. I got a nice Lafroig 10 going on here. As many of you have seen, my drink in general is a whiskey of some kind, usually a single malt Scotch. So hope you all have something nice in front of you. Scott, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, yeah, it probably says a little something about everybody. Jason asked me to bring my drink of choice, and
not that we're promoting drinking, people.
Yeah, but I think if I had my drink of choice, it would probably be some sort of new craft beer every single night. I think it just kind of goes hand in hand of my personality. So tonight, yeah, and I'm also I totally get sucked in by a good graphic design.
Oh yeah.
Craft beer labels now. I love the colors in this one. Totally bought it just because of the colors, but it's called South Island Squeeze. It's really hot here right now in the Northeast, so it seemed like a good one. Yeah. My choice.
Great. There's I saw I don't know, a podcaster or a content creator, a reviewer, and he pairs board games with a craft beer. It's called Board Games and Beer or something like that. And he literally seeks out, you have one that has greens and oranges and yellows in that beer, right? So he'll seek out a game that has a cover with those exact color schemes, and then he'll overlay them. And at first I was like, oh, that's a cute gimmick, and I went back and looked. He has hundreds of these, and they are paired perfectly. Yeah. It was cool to see. He just goes around and finds beers from all over the world. Sure. All right, so with that, let's get into the subject matter of Drop Drive. I almost said Dungeon Drop. Drop Drive. The names are so similar. Intentionally. So Scott, what is your elevator pitch for what Drop Drive is? What's your 60-second or whatever length of elevator pitch?
Well, obviously, we'll need to do a lot of honing of this over the next few months, but basically, you are going to instantly, this is the big tie to Dungeon Drop, you will instantly create a solar system on your tabletop with this game. It's the thing that links these two projects together. It's the reason why they have a similar name, that initial drop that creates this unique play space. But that is pretty much where they go in their separate directions. So from there on, it becomes something totally different. This is what we're calling kind of a sandbox game experience. You are collecting alien specimens, you are building out your unique ship, you are trying to maybe hunt down some pirates, a whole variety of things. My daughter popped into that.
That's okay.
But yeah, it's hopefully a space that people can really just explore and find their own way in this really spatial representation of a sci-fi world, and this is something we're going to dive into. It's something we're really excited to bring to the table.
Hi.
Hi. 1 second.
No, that's all right. I'm just saying hi to your child. I am hearing still that your voice is a little lower, so I'm trying to see if there's a way I can, and I don't think I can while it's active. Give me a second, folks. I'm going to turn Scott off. Then I think I might be able to add an audio filter. Gain. No, it's not letting me while we're live. So we're gonna make do with what we got. Next time we'll be able to find a way to increase Scott's volume. Let me just check one more place over here. No, there's no volume control that I have. So okay.
All right. Well, the good news is we'll probably get a chance to work this out, but
yeah.
I'm gonna first go here.
Yeah. All right. All right. So let's see. So that was your elevator pitch. Yes, I pulled up your. It's actually your artwork of Space Boblin up in the upper right, because that is kind of a connection point between the two games. You took Boblin from Dungeon Drop, and you put them in a space helmet, and I thought that was cool. But yeah, as you mentioned, the games kind of depart after that first drop element.
Right, and let me just get back to that real quick because I was slightly distracted by my daughter coming in.
That's okay.
But yeah, I mean the big different direction this game goes is that when I would play test Dungeon Drop with people, it was always a cool experience. I really felt like I was bringing something unique to the table, and I got that feedback all the way through. But I would get a really consistent suggestion, which was like, is there some way I could be an actual thing in the dungeon? People are inclined to want to enter that space. I still love, I always resisted in Dungeon Drop because I think what we do there is so unique. But I did want to take some of the core of that game and take it into this direction. This is what you're going to see in Drop Drive. You have a ship. You're not just kind of abstractly finding a space in this game. You have an actual ship that you are going to drop into the space, and you are going to very physically navigate through that system. You can do it in two ways. You can do it by moving horizontally and kind of weaving your way around what's in the system, or you can actually pick your ship up, kind of remove it from the space entirely, enter a kind of hyperspace, and redrop in different places. So we're really excited to kind of bring this really different kind of play mechanic in here.
That is awesome. I totally agree. I lost your video. It's not on your end. I'm sorry about this, folks. I am trying to get Scott back. So give me 1 second. I think what I'm going to do is turn that one off and re-add Skype. We're going to add window. Sorry about this, folks.
No problem.
1 second. There we go. Window capture. We're going to recapture Skype. Well, interesting. Oh, I wonder if because we're live. Let's see how.
When I disconnected, did I mess with things?
I don't know. All right, tell you what I can do though. Since device capture was working, if I make you full screen on that device and then do device capture or display capture. All right, I have you back in the stream. Can you go ahead and talk, and hopefully we can hear from people that we're still hearing you.
Shot here. Are you able to hear me? I know I may not be as loud as we want, but
I can hear you, and you're in the video, so I'm gonna assume that we are good. If Darren or someone else can confirm that you can still hear Scott, we'll get back into it. In the meantime, I am gonna proceed. Okay, sorry about that. So, you gave your elevator pitch twice. I'm gonna give mine now. All right, we got a confirmation. So my elevator pitch is probably not dissimilar. For me, I'm going to start using the term sandbox game, and we'll talk in a second about what that means. But to me, Drop Drive introduces a full sandbox game experience that's playable in a shorter amount of time than most other sandbox games. So, like, playable in 30 minutes within an infinitely randomized galaxy. And I think that pulls in that drop mechanic, right? That you have that instant space, infinite possibilities straight from Dungeon Drop. But that sandbox game experience is so different from Dungeon Drop. So That to me is, kind of the synopsis. Obviously, like you said, we're going to wordsmith this and really figure out how we nail this. But how would you define? I use that term, and candidly, I meant to go out to Board Game Geek and see, is that actually an official like game mechanic or model that they recognize, the concept of a sandbox game? But what does that mean to you when you hear that term?
For me, I'm hoping, I think what it means for me is the opportunity to kind of take control of your experience or adventure in the environment. So being able to kind of be more of a path where you're primarily trying to win the game by being a really effective trader, versus in our game, this kind of exploration, specimen collection, or just really creating a little bit more of kind of like a souped up ship that allows you a lot of other kinds of bonuses. Just a lot of different paths kind of to victory opening up, and a feeling of a little bit of identity building with each of those paths of what type of captain you are in this place.
Yeah, so almost like a freedom of choice, right? That, a sandbox game. So what are some other examples that are out there that people might have heard of? Firefly is a popular one, especially if you were into that IP, which I love, Firefly. Zaya is another popular one. Star Wars Outer Rim. And I've heard, but I haven't played, that Merchants and Marauders is very similar as well to this kind of like choose your own path, many different paths to victory. Go out and be a privateer, go out and be a cargo delivery, merchant, go out and hunt down bounties, or be an alchemist and make stuff. That's in the pirate universe. But, in our case, being able to
passengers too, that want to be ferried kind of from place to place, which is another piece of it as well.
Yeah, for me, those are my favorite games on the market currently. Sandbox games where you just have that ultimate freedom of choice. Now, one of the downsides for me is with those other games is they typically are 90-minute at the low end to 180-minute game experiences. So if you got a gaming group, you need to plan that this is the game for the night. Yeah. And that's not always possible. So for me, one of the things I'm so excited about with Drop Drive, I don't know what other game tries to deliver that kind of like a sandbox game experience. At one point, you and I were using the term 4X for this game, but I don't think that's as correct, because you're not exterminating, you're not expanding empires and exploiting. There is exploring, but so we got that X. Yeah. But it's all the other stuff in this privateer kind of game experience, and I love that sandbox, choose your own direction, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. For in the video game arena, I think we had both played Freelancer, which is the one I have very fond memories of.
Absolutely. So one of the other things I think that we're trying to do with this game, and very successfully so far, is where Dungeon Drop can be considered more abstract. Drop Drive is not really abstract at all. I mean, Dungeon Drop, we have cubes, a whole lot of cubes that mean all different things. And we had to do that because the cubes needed to be pulled randomly from a box, and you couldn't, you didn't want people to distinguish one thing from another. That doesn't exist here in Drop Drive, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was really exciting right from the start. That was such a limiting factor in a lot of ways with Dungeon Drop. I mean, it's part of what, again, makes that game unique. But the fact that you had to, explore and not be able to immediately feel those different types of cubes in the box, that ended up being a real limiting design factor as soon as we went that direction. With Drop Drive, we knew kind of right from the start that wasn't going to happen that way. And because of it, we're going to get, I think, such a more kind of just directly physical representation of the stuff that's kind of thematically in the game on the table. Like the asteroids alone, which are the main, kind of the central thing you're collecting. There'll be very different types of asteroids, water ones and ore ones and stuff. We have some cool ideas about how these could actually look. But they're going to look not like a cube, right? They'll actually be a physical, chunky asteroid of some kind. And we really have no limits to what shape things can be, like the planets, and possibly the ships. A bit of space salvage, and who knows, down the road, some of the crazy ideas we have for the anomalies. So, I think it's going to look really, just at an immediate glance, it won't have that abstraction of cubes. It's going to look really physical. Yeah.
And I think another way that comes out in this game, which people will learn about more in subsequent live streams, is that in Dungeon Drop, unless you play with some of the advanced game modes, you're never really like in the dungeon, moving from room to room. Mm-hmm. It's more of a spatial puzzle, right? And you're choosing which is the best room, and you're trying to manipulate it. Here, you got a ship, and it's moving through this infinite galaxy. So I think that's just another way that it kind of goes from more of an abstract and into a real tangible. You should know what you're looking at, and all our components, of course, are going to be hopefully very obvious what they are. Like you said, crystals for the asteroids. We got planets that'll look like planets. We got space salvage. We'll have printed ships and probably deluxe ships that are even more unique than just printing. We'll have all sorts of things that are very obvious, and being able to manipulate that through the galaxy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And a sun at the middle of it all, probably, which
yes.
I continue to really love. How that anchors the whole space. Another thing we might get into that too is that it centers kind of the rules around dropping when something does get in the equivalent of like Dungeon Drop terms, like redropped. That's where that kind of central space comes into play. So it's all a little different in this one, yeah.
So. This is actually a question, as I was pulling these together, I'm like, I don't actually know if I know Scott's answer to this, and I love this. I know how you came up with Dungeon Drop. There was the contest, there was a trip to the grocery store, and I know how you put 2 and 2 together, and we have Dungeon Drop. Where did the idea for Drop Drive come from? Where did this, it is now a game that is what we're calling a sandbox game, but what happened in your brain? Obviously you were coming off the high of Dungeon Drop, presumably, but like what sparked it for you? Where did this game come from?
Well, I guess the all the way back origins of this game probably come from 2 places. One of my absolute favorite games growing up as a video game, but it almost like an educational game, but I absolutely loved it. It's called Gazillionaire. I don't know if anybody's played it before, but it is just like a space trading. All you're doing is buying and selling goods and bringing them to different planets. But you could play it sitting at the same computer with someone else. So it was almost like a board game. I play with my brother, and we take turns back and forth and try to kind of outsell each other. But because that game just has this really warm memory in my head, my brother and I playing it together, I always wanted to do kind of some sort of space trading game. So that just always in my head, as a whole bunch of other ideas are, of course. And then the other, like, all the way back origin of this actually goes back to one of the very first conversations I ever had with Jason, where, we were still having our first, maybe this is like our second phone call ever. The first one was basically just introducing ourselves and that you were interested in this project for Phase Shift. And then the second one was really to kind of dive into the details of Dungeon Drop. And we talked about, like, do you retheme the whole thing? Does it have to be in a dungeon? It is a pretty abstract game. And at one point we talked about, space theming it. We're just chit-chatting about it, But those things get lodged in your head, once you start talking about it. Oh, it would be kind of neat to be in this spatial realm, but in space instead of a dungeon, and it just changes your thinking about the whole thing. So, I mean, that's all the way back for this, and it kind of just brews in your head. and then as I just mentioned, like from the play testing, this desire for people to want to jump into this table space. We've converted your tabletop right into a board, and people want to be in there. So that came out even before Dungeon Drop came out, and so Jason, it probably wasn't that long after Dungeon Drop had gone that I sent you a picture of just kind of like a photograph of all. I think I had some little kind of those crystal asteroid things, and just kind of a low down view that looked kind of like a space environment, and just said, hey, I'd love to do something like this, and if I remember right, pretty
jumped out of my seat. Interesting. Because I remember that second conversation, and we were talking about how what you made for the contest for Dungeon Drop could be just about any theme, and I remember talking about that in a space setting it could be that the three, because it's three pillars, right, that form a room, that could be like what are they called on Star Trek, the pattern enhancers on a planet, and you're trying to beam up the cargo through the storm, the electrical storm or something. In fact, at one point, I might have even hoped that we went that direction. Because
at the point, of course, I told him, you're being ridiculous. The game takes place in a dungeon.
And you're right. But that itch needed to be scratched of getting something science fiction going. So yeah, I don't know at what point you said, well, we need to have a space game with this drop mechanic, and we need to have actual navigation of a ship through the stuff in this galaxy, but that's where it landed, and thank God it did. And so I guess, did you have any like design intent? Was there something that some nut you wanted to crack with this game, or was it really just that science fiction, leverage that drop mechanic, see what else we could do with it, and go from there?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of something I just really wanted to do, I know it's this actually maneuvering through the space. That's the thing I just really wanted to take advantage of. And I know that both systems, I think people will find they're really different systems, but they both are anchored in this spatial arrangement, right? And it's amazing just porting over. I don't know, the way my mind works. As soon as you port over this incredibly new theme, I know sci-fi and dungeon are both like total tropes that have been done a million times, but one of the reasons why is they just breed like such different creative spaces, and diving into this from this sci-fi angle. Just is super, super exciting. All sorts of new ideas start bubbling up, every time we talk. And we're both big sci-fi fans. I mean, I grew up watching Star Trek Next Generation with my dad. Super, super warm place in my heart. So there's all sorts of itches this game scratches. But yeah.
Awesome. And so now that it's coming to life, and obviously we're in the final stages of game development as we speak, but what's your dream for what do you hope to see out of Drop Drive? What do you hope to get out of Drop Drive in the end? What's the end game here?
Well, I mean, things that I hope from this, I hope to. Another thing that's just become so huge to me. I mean, running the Kickstarter campaigns, it's hard to underestimate, or understate or overstate how much fun we have with that.
Yeah.
It's not just the excitement of just like kind of launching this like totally our little baby project that just 3 or 4 of us are working on out into the larger world, which is like super, super exciting. But it's also it doesn't just go out like into the void. Like for that period of a month or so, it becomes this collaborative thing with people, and we've just had so much fun doing that. I don't know, it's just the thing I look forward to the most now. It's weird because it's like I know I'm the designer, like it's my game, but the opportunities I get to work with other people, both you as a developer of the game, you have a huge hand on the final form that these take, but also the work we do with people on Kickstarter. I guess the end game would be that we end up producing something that feels really kind of unique and special, but that also the community with us feels like we kind of created together just a little bit, and we all have a little part of it. I don't know, just we did this somehow with Dungeon Drop, so I'm just hoping we can do it again.
So I'll throw in my publisher 2 cents. What I am stoked about is that so Dungeon Drop I feel like we introduced this drop mechanic. There are a couple other games on the market where things are being dropped, but not so central to the game as like the core randomization engine, that you're then kind of making sense of the chaos, and that's the game. So that was a great innovation with Dungeon Drop. And one of the things that I'm just very excited to do here, and then even see post drop drive. So what we've proven we can do is take that same drop mechanic. We call it the drop style game. That's what we're coining it as, at least, and wrap a totally different game around it. Right? It's not Dungeon Drop. This is not just a reskin, and it's as we said earlier, this is a full sandbox game experience. Well, so that's what I hope to see out of this, and it's not even a hope. I know that's what's coming out of this, and it's fantastic, and I can't wait for the world to see that and feel that. But I'm also eager to see what's after that. Now that we've proven it doesn't have to just be that one game engine of Dungeon Drop, it can be anything, right? Could there be a word game that does something around a drop, or in this drop style genre? Could there be a area control game? Just totally, who knows, right?
Yeah. So. We kind of take it one project at a time, but certainly if we can do it twice and have 2 games as different as these 2 games are, then there's a future ahead for taking it in different directions. There's no question.
We have a comment from online. Drop Dirge Pirates. Or who knows indeed. Yes. Well, we'll see. So I'm going to throw up a couple images for people to see, because I have them prepared. We'll kind of give you a snapshot. What I have to do is turn off the logo, turn off our awesome, fun passenger there. Take a quick gander, though, before I turn him off, at that. He's a duster. That's the culture of that species. We call them the dusters. But take a look at the art style and the friendliness of him, because the next image I'm going to pull up, or one of the next images, I have a different passenger artwork it looks much darker, and I wanted to draw a quick point for people as they see that. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm also going to turn off the space background so it's easier to see, and I've got just a couple images here. So the first one is this one. So there's 4 images on the screen. On the left is the back of these cards. So they're these tall, thin cards. They're exactly half the width of our square cards from Dungeon Drop. You all here presumably know our standard Dungeon Drop square card. There it is. And so this is exactly half the size, and that's actually important. And that gets pulled into the game in different ways. So what you see on the left there is the back of, there you go, is the back of what we call the Explore deck. And in the Explore deck are these 3 primary types of cards. And in subsequent live streams, we'll go into each one of these and how they mechanically work. Once again, what you're seeing are unfinished cards. So the 3 cards side by side here, there's a lot of black space above and below. You know, the first one, that's because we haven't put in all the stats and the title bar and things like that. But what that is an upgrade for your ship. Hold that thought, because in a second I'm going to show you what the ships look like and how that kind of slots in between. In the middle is a passenger, and here's the artwork that I said looks a little darker. That kind of looks creepy, right? That's an alien host, something gestating inside. That's a promo card that we put out there through the Dice Tower Kickstarter, and we'll have it up on some other places for purchase as well, through like the Board Game Geek store and such. It's meant to be more of a offshoot alien species, but I didn't want people to see that and feel like, oh, this game's quite a bit, different than what we expect. Like the previous artwork I showed you with the turtle creature, he's like, hey, that's the style that we want for the game.
It ended up being really interesting, because we had this idea for the promo card, which is a cool idea. I mean, totally, the host, this thing like pops out. But, I think we only realized afterwards that this is like kind of the only card from the game that anybody's seeing, really, is the promo card, and it is so dark, so it does kind of color maybe the initial impression. It's a pretty friendly, bright game.
Yes. As the third image should hopefully point out. So on the right is what we call a specimen. So again, 3 different types of cards in this one Explore deck, and in a subsequent session we'll tell you how that all works. But the specimens are these like, oh my god, there's so many and they're so cute. They're all these like adorable little alien just specimens that you're finding as you go out and explore these wild landscapes. And they're adorable and they're vibrant and colorful. And this one here is in a canister that's reflective of the planet, the home planet. In this case, the Yishans, which is like an ice planet, and so it's got that frosty look to it. And in any case, wanted to just start giving a glimpse into these different things.
Jason, it's Yeshans.
Oh,
Yeshans. I'm we haven't talked about how to pronounce it.
I have said it Yishin so many times. That is interesting that was your intent.
I'm sure we'll said a few other ways as well.
All right, and then I'm going to turn off that image and show you this image, which is some ship pieces. And so that one that you saw previously, that ship upgrade, now what you're seeing here is that there's a ship front on the left and a ship back, and then in the middle was that upgrade card. Now this is a major departure from Dungeon Drop in one way. It's similar in one way. You've got your ship front and ship back, which is not dissimilar from Dungeon Drop's race and class, where they come together and they form your character. So at the beginning of the game here, you're going to have a ship front and a ship back. They come together and form your ship. And you'll notice that there's all these cargo spaces in the back, and then your ship front might have different cannons denoting battle strength and things like that. But the ability to go out and explore and find things like ship upgrades that you separate these ship pieces and then slot in these upgrades is totally new and wicked cool.
Yeah, it's a definitely different feel. With Dungeon Drop, you had the kind of the racing class card that combined initially, but we did eventually introduce kind of the relics and the ability to kind of gain some new skills, but I think people will find this is more kind of naturally baked into the way that your ship is gonna sometimes even start out asymmetrically different than other people's ships, depending on what your kind of starting hand is.
Indeed. I just wanted to start showing folks a glimpse into these different pieces, because we're going to dive into all these different, and there's so many other aspects we haven't even talked about. There's the planets and the markets, and it can sound like it's complicated. There's so much going on in this game, but we mean it when we say these games are 30 minutes or under. It's a super accessible game model. As much as there's all these different things that you can do, we've figured out the way to deliver that experience in a simple, accessible manner, which is super important for our audience, certainly.
Yeah, it's actually still really important to me that this game can be sort of in that family game category, that, and I think this is one of the things we've chatted about this a few times, but I guess this is another like total end game vision goal that if we could accomplish something with this, it's maybe trying to package some of that grander sci-fi experience into just a sort of a more condensed, accessible space. I mean, what we're doing is we're leveraging the spatial nature of that drop mechanic to kind of instantly create a lot of stuff that otherwise you might need a lot of extra components and stuff, other things going on complexity-wise to kind of present on the table, and hopefully we're able to kind of represent this in a really physical way that is appealing to kind of all ages a little bit too. Just those really physical items on the tabletop.
Yeah. And this artwork that I have here, I probably quickly mention at least that there are 5 different like main cultures in the game, and then of course that alien host is like a 6th offshoot. But and so all the different specimens, the passengers, and these ship pieces here represent or come from one of those different main cultures. And so in this image, those 3 pieces are intentionally, they fit together seamlessly, but they intentionally look like they come from very different kind of shipyards and technology backgrounds.
Right.
And people will see much more of that as we go. So, Scott, what does this mean for you for Dungeon Drop? Is Dungeon Drop dead?
No, it never dies. What does it mean for Dungeon Drop? I think we have done so much with Dungeon Drop. I mean, the expansion campaign really, again, it blew up in a couple of unexpected directions. We've got to explore so much of kind of the wish list of stuff that we came out of the first campaign with. But at the same time, I think we recognized it was like really healthy to kind of let that sit for a bit. Obviously, let people actually play with that eventually when it gets delivered, and just go and energies here. And I think there's I'm a big believer that stuff cross-pollinates all the time. So, after really diving into Drop Drive, which I'm sure we're about to engage in a year of doing this, of just being in this space, but I'm just going to predict that somehow we come out of Drop Drive with new ideas that could potentially go into Dungeon Drop. Like, it happens. I think the arts is always this way. So I'm really looking forward to just seeing where I can't predict where the creative space will be at post this project, but I'm really excited to find out.
Absolutely. And from the publisher side, I'll certainly tell everyone, in case I made anyone scared by the statement, Dungeon Drop is not dead by any means, no. But what we were thrilled with the initial release, even more thrilled with the way that last expansion Kickstarter went. With pulling in that 5-player mode, pulling in fully cooperative mode, pulling in the huge monsters and the behaviors. There's so much, and we pulled some aspects of that into this effort for Drop Drive, which is great. But I think we all agree it's time to let Dungeon Drop breathe a bit, breathe in the market, soak in that expansion. There's so much new expansion content for people to explore and enjoy. And we're going to, focus a lot on Drop Drive. Like you just said, though, there are crossover potential. There are plenty of other ideas, Scott, that you've had for Dungeon Drop still that we'll come back to, and, after this works itself out for a bit. But no, there's, I think, for me, they fit in the marketplace in a very similar way. There's a lot of overlap in the intended audience. Like you said, this is still very family friendly. It's meant to be accessible and not like this deep hobby gamer experience like Merchants and Marauders and some of the other ones are. this is meant to, bring that type of game model to a much wider audience. So there's a ton of overlap, but it's not exclusive overlap. This is a step more towards that hobby market. And the two games coexist beautifully together. Not to mention the fact that the boxes are so cute and adorable right next to each other on the shelf. I think this is just we let Dungeon Drop grow up a bit on its own, find its legs in the marketplace, which is already going super well. We have it translated into 8 languages and more are in the works. So it just continues to do wonders on its own. And we focus on Drop Drive for a bit. And then, we'll see where we'll certainly be coming full circle at some point.
Sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, we got a couple comments. Dungeon Drop never dies. Who knows where it all goes indeed. But if there are no other questions, Scott, are there any parting words that you want to give after this first live stream?
I'm just super excited to be kind of officially kicking off the ride on this one. I know we're just kind of getting started, but really exciting to see the Facebook page for this game pop up and all this is you've got your crazy creative project, and I'm lucky enough to actually be able to work with you guys where it keeps taking one step forward, becoming a reality, and every step forward is just incredibly exciting. Looking forward to any questions or chats that I have with people in the next few months ahead, which is something like when we launched Dungeon Drop, there was
nothing
discussion. Yeah. So I'm sure as the Kickstarter nears, we're going to actually be engaged in kind of an ongoing discussion with the community even ahead of the Kickstarter. So I'm just looking forward to all of it, the ride.
As you were talking, 3 things popped in my head that I wanted to say, and now, of course, I forgot them all. A question did come in about the Kickstarter timeline. I'll get to that in a second. But seeing the community grow, all these steps. I lost what I wanted to say, but that's all right. So folks were asking what the Kickstarter timeline is. We have a tentative schedule in place that we're marching towards, so it would be October, if not late September is possible. So that's what we're kind of shooting for, and we have a lot of work to do still, but that is the plan at the moment. We're actually going to be, in fact, Scott, you're going to be with us at least at one of these. So we are signed up for Gen Con, which is in September. We are going to Essen, Germany in October, and PAX Unplugged in December. Those are 3 big conventions. Now that the world is kind of opening back up, thank God, we are looking forward to having real community presence. Frankly, for the first time, we had Dungeon Drop hit, and then COVID hit, and we never actually got in front of the community at conventions with Dungeon Drop. So, not to mention Tavern Tales now and Drop Drive Prototype. What was that?
I was just gonna say we went to one. We went to
PAX East. You're
together.
Right. Yep.
It's surreal now because this was right before everything went down, and I got that Facebook notification a year ago. You were here, and it was the crazy convention center, and we're still in the tail end of dealing with COVID and stuff, and it was just so surreal to see those pictures just surrounded by all those people. But I mean, even though it was one outing, it was such an exciting beginning. That outing went really well, and we had the fancy tables set up, and people were having a ton of fun with it. So it was such a bummer to get that kind of tail end of the journey with Dungeon Drop. Obviously we picked it up. I think I'm so glad we did with the kind of expansion to continue things going online, but we never really in person got to keep the thing going.
Well, so Gen Con, we will have Dungeon Drop there available for sale. Let's see, that is September. I should have inventory of the expansion, Drop Too Deep, Wizards and Spells 5-player expansion, and Tavern Tales standalone game. We should have all of that available at Gen Con, which is awesome. And we'll have a copy of Drop Drive for sure that's playable and at least set up so people can see it and see the latest prototype artwork and so on. And if all goes well, the schedule that we're planning, we would launch the Kickstarter shortly after Gen Con, so we can take pre-sign-ups and such, at Gen Con. And then while we're at Essen, it would be going on, and that would be kind of during that middle part of the campaign, which is good, so we can boost hype while we're at Essen, which is, of course, the biggest
awesome, yeah.
biggest convention on the planet. And then in December, we'll be post-campaign, but, we'll have late pledges going on. So I think the whole recipe is just probably going to work out super well with that fall schedule.
Very exciting.
It's super exciting. What kind of things will be dropped other than cubes? Good question. Scott?
I guess the question is is it thematically or the actual objects? In terms of so the asteroids are represented by different literal, I'll feel like either crystalline or stony chunks of things. You're going to have the planets themselves that'll get dropped, to create their arrangement around the sun. Pirates will end up getting dropped, and they'll be I'm sure the final version will be some sort of custom printed token of some kind. So we've got kind of space wreckage that'll get dropped in, and all these things, unlike Dungeon Drop, they'll have different shapes and potentially even be made out of different materials. And Jason, one thing that we chat about just a little bit every once in a while is this other category of stuff that is not actually all the way we chat about it all the time. We call it anomalies, but we are super committed right now to just getting the core of the game as tight as it can possibly be. But it's impossible not to chat about these anomalies, which really have potentially anything could be dropped into the system, basically, and it could have much more far-ranging effects than kind of the core of the game. We're really excited to kind of go there, and we plan to go there definitely with the community. So, I guess the short answer is anything can be dropped into the system and Drop Drive. We know some of the basics, some of the core stuff, but I'm not even sure I could predict the final arrangement.
Yes, and then even the players' ships at times will be dropped into space, both during setup and as part of a mechanic, which you'll learn about later on.
Yeah, we'll get into this more, but so just to give a hint of this, in Dungeon Drop, you had to explore to continue to put stuff into the system, but there's a different system in Drop Drive. So when you sell things at the market, some of it returns back to the system in new locations. So stuff continues to get shaken up. The pirates do it in different ways. That is something I learned from designing Dungeon Drop is in an early version of Dungeon Drop, you dropped everything into the table and it stayed there. That's it. You just kind of picked that apart and that was it. But I learned from designing that, it was much more fun to keep the system dynamic. So that's kind of baked into the core of Drop Drive in new ways.
Awesome. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it here. Just about 1 hour, which is perfect. So thank you for joining us on our first kickoff here. We'll look forward to digging into a lot of these individual mechanics and topics and themes. We intend to pull in tropes from all across the science fiction spectrum, and a lot of the things Scott just mentioned, the anomalies, are going to allow us to pull in things in super unique ways that we haven't even fully figured out, and you're all going to help us figure out. Super, super exciting. So thank you all, and Scott, thanks so much. We'll look forward to talking with everyone again soon. Thanks so much, folks.
Yeah, thanks everybody, just looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Awesome. Bye-bye.